Welcome to Ridgecrest Talk. My guest today is Eileen Shibley. And Eileen, thank you for joining me today. It's so exciting to have you here to talk to us about the manufacturing you've brought to Ridgecrest, Monarch Inc.
Thank you for having us.
And us as you and your beautiful Monarch.
Yep.
So before we get into Monarch Inc. and your manufacturing company, tell us a little bit about, a lot of people are familiar with the Cal UAS and that program and what went on there, but you had told me a very interesting story about your college background, and I would like you to share that, because we have, of course, people of all ages who listen in, and a lot of them may be going through those same sort of trials you went through and experienced. So tell us what that was like for you in finding your footing there.
Sure. So, like so many people that I've known over the years, and everybody has a story, right? Like so many people, I came to Ridgecrest, China Lake for the summer. I was just going to...
Summer of?
1973.
Okay, okay.
I was just going to be here for the summer, and I was actually going to school at South Dakota State, and I had every intention of continuing school, but a brother of mine, John Parlett, had opened up a pizza parlor here in Ridgecrest the year before, so I asked him if I could wait tables at the pizza parlor to make money for the next school year, and he said yes. And so I found my way to California, and I waited tables at John's Pizza, and I also set type at the Daily Independent at night.
Okay.
And right before I was supposed to fly back to South Dakota, I got a call from my parents, and I had received a letter from the bank, and I was going to school on one of those federally subsidized loans for low income, like most people I knew. And so Congress had made some cutbacks, and that was one of the areas that they cut back. And so all of a sudden, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to go to school.
That was your letter. That was your letter.
That was what the letter was.
We've cut back, and you were
and your
no
particular
longer...
category of loans has been affected. And so I had no way to go to school.
And you said you had your books, you had your schedule, you had...
I had a roommate, I had my dorm room, I had everything. And so I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I thought about it a little bit, and I went to the base at China Lake, and I applied to take the clerk typist test. And I was very fortunate because I was able to be hired on as I think I was a GS2 clerk typist in what was in those days called the WAE pool. It was kind of like a Kelly girl pool.
Right.
Secretaries, if somebody's on maternity leave or on vacation, you fill in for them.
Float in, a floater.
And it was the most absolutely wonderful opportunity because I got to learn a little bit about this amazing place, China Lake, and I got to work in, I think, almost every department, every major department on the base at that time.
Great experience.
And then I took a permanent job, I got promoted, and at that time I started back to school. And I decided I wanted to be a computer scientist.
Okay.
And in those days, you could take a lot of the language classes at Saracoso. So I took every class that Saracoso had, every lower division class, and all the programming classes that they had, everything including Fortran, even COBOL in those days. And then
those were languages my sister took in her computer.
Way back when.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was accepted and transferred to Cal State Chico in their computer science program. And I did that for quite a long time. I had senior status, and I actually wrote my first assembler, and I stayed up 2 whole nights trying to get this thing to compile and work, and got most of the errors out, and I finally got it to work, and I was so frustrated. And the next morning I looked in the mirror and I thought to myself, I'm not wired this way. I have no talent to do this type of thing. And so I thought, I'm going to have to shift gears, but I was determined to finish my degree. And so I transferred to Cal State Bakersfield, and I went into the technical side of their business program. And so I ended up with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business for Computer Applications. That's what it's called. So,
and you were excited because you felt that fit.
I was very excited. It took me 9 years to get my degree, but I got there, and what was really good about that for me was that I worked full-time on the base the whole time I was doing this, and the base was so good to me because I had an opportunity to see all these things. I was in awe of the technical contributions that were made. I knew that I would not make that type of contribution, but I still felt like I could make a contribution, and having that allowed me to move to the next level, and I had amazing, wonderful opportunities at China Lake. Very, very lucky.
And so now, how did Cal UAS come out of that opportunity or experience?
So when I retired from the base, I actually did retire for about a year.
Okay, all right.
And then I heard, actually, I believe that I initially heard about this from Mick Gleason, and as a part of the China Lake Alliance, which I was very much interested in as well. And what I heard was that the FAA was looking at the possibility of naming 6 sites across the country to become test sites whose purpose it would be to figure out how to safely integrate small unmanned systems into our national airspace. And I was very excited about that.
And how did that fit so well with Ridgecrest?
Well, first of all, one of the jobs that I had when I worked on the base was a division job, and I had unmanned systems in my division. And so I kind of developed an interest and a sense of what they might mean in the future for other than defense. But then what happened was, when I was still running that shop on the base, we were constantly looking for places where we could do things. And one of the places that we looked at was in Yukon Airport. And it's an absolutely perfect place to fly. There's very little commercial traffic. There's an environment where everybody really cares about general aviation, and so we would have always been, working to make sure we fit in, but felt like that would be really easy, and it was just a great place. And so we put Inyakern forward and started to gather a couple people together to kind of lead this charge to have Inyakern named as a hub for a California effort to become a national test center.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back with Eileen Shibley after this message. Welcome back to Ridgecrest Talk, and this is Eileen Shibley, my guest. And Eileen, you were telling us about how the Cal UAS was such a good fit for Ridgecrest. And so let's pick up there, because actually it was determined it wasn't going to be a match.
So part of the reason it was a good fit is because Inyakern is a perfectly natural place to do this type of testing, and Ridgecrest is the perfect town to embrace new technologies, to think about things flying in the air around us, because we have that all the time. And from the day that we started, this town of Ridgecrest supported Cal UAS in a way that is still heartwarming. We were very, very blessed, and I can tell you that is really worth noting, because during the course of running Cal UAS, I got to meet my counterparts from across the country, and not many of them enjoyed an environment and a hometown like Ridgecrest that did completely support them. So politics weren't quite going to allow California to be named a test site, and that was absolutely devastating for those of us that had put almost 2 years of our lives, with no pay, of course, none of us, toward this effort. But you know what? You pick yourself up and you move on. And we had gone so far down this path that we didn't want to just kind of abandon it and say, oh well. And so that's where this idea kind of came from.
So in that process, you saw other possibilities, other potential, and you're like, we're not done with this yet. Yeah. And so you...
So what happened was we actually started talking to other people and started, really understanding that a huge part of our job was education about what some of the things are that these small unmanned systems, what people mostly refer to as drones, what these things can do. And so we ended up building one so that we could take it out when we were talking to people and kind of demo it so they could get a feel about it. And then two of the people that were involved with Cal UAS went to a class down in the LA area for a camera manufacturer, and one of the students wanted to buy it. And
the whole idea?
No,
or
they
just
wanted
one
to buy
of the models?
our bird, which didn't even have a name. We just I don't even know what we called it in those days, because we were still tinkering with it, and it was just our small UAS or our small drone or whatever. And they wanted to buy it, and that's when I thought, oh my gosh,
what have I got here?
We might be really onto something. We might be able to sell these things. And so we really quick went down and we did all the stuff legally. We got a business license. We became a corporation.
Who's we? Who is we?
Well, at that point it was, I'm the one that did all of that stuff. But there was a group of, I think 4 or 5 of us at that time that were kind of all in. All of us were, so it's always a group, right?
Okay.
And so
yes, it takes a group effort.
It always does. It always does. And then what we did was we tried to figure out, okay, how do we put ourselves together in such a way that we can do this? Well, we were just talking about that. We sold another one. And
so
then
you did sell her that one?
We built another one for her.
Okay.
In the garage.
Okay.
And then a couple months later, we got another sale, and we built that in the garage. And then we decided that we'd outgrown the garage. And so a friend of mine here in town has a metal fabrication plant, I asked that's Skip Gorman, and I asked him if he might be willing to consider letting us move in with him for a while until we got ourselves kind of organized. And it was about that time that the city came into some of their economic development money that was supposed to be spent for economic development, and the thought behind that was diversity. The thought was to try to get some light manufacturing in Ridgecrest in an area that would be complementary to the base, but not in any way competing with the base, and that just seemed perfect for us, and so we applied for that. And once again, we were so incredibly supported by this city, just amazing support from this city, and it is that support that allowed us to move into our own building and to actually put this manufacturing plant together that is firmly in place right now and functional.
So it was a tax allocation bond grant, or
I think it was from, I don't know all the mechanics.
But then so the money came together from that, and then your degree in business and computer science is coming together in, now you have this business.
And there were a lot of restrictions on that money from the city, right? And so it wasn't enough for us to really do the business. It was, now don't get me wrong, we could never have done it without that.
It was startup money, or
it was, and what we had to do was figure out how to put a team together and how to pay for them, how to get investors, how to get loans. It's been fascinating, but exceedingly difficult. Extremely difficult.
So tell me a little bit about your Monarch here.
So we've
got a couple minutes here before we go to our next break.
This is a gimbaled platform, and it is built for the purpose of making maps. This thing right down here has a camera.
And you told me that was the cocoon.
This is a cocoon. That's a Monarch design. You won't find many. We don't know of any others that have that kind of sensor housing that allows you to protect your cameras. But what we do for a farmer or for a surveyor or for, I can go into all kinds of applications, but we will find out the area that they want to get a closer look at, and we will go out and fly this thing in kind of a lawnmower type pattern over their property, and then we will take it back and we will reduce that data and give them a map or a picture of what that area looks like. And the whole purpose of it is to help them with decision making. For farmers, it's to have a sophisticated enough sensor that you can give them information down to the chlorophyll level. You can tell them areas that might not be getting enough water, areas that might be getting too much, some areas where you might have an infestation and you want to spot chemical, you know, that area. Instead of spraying your whole field. Chemicals are very expensive, whether it's nutrients or fertilizer or whatever it is, those are expensive for farmers. And so the idea is this is just a tool to help them better do their job. It's a tool to help them get information they couldn't get any other way but from the air.
They get a direct map, they get a mosaic of different aspects of their fields, and it tells them, and you have different, you use the infrared and the different, well, there were 3 different.
We have a lot of different types of sensors.
We'll get back to that.
Okay.
And this is Ridgecrest Talk. My guest is Eileen Shibley, talking to us about Monarch Inc. And she's brought with us her creation, the Monarch drone. And I had so much fun, Eileen, going through, taking the tour, I should say, of Monarch Inc. You're right in my neighborhood. And so it was really a very fascinating space that you have and room. You were talking about starting at in a garage, and yet now you showed me a clean room you have there. So tell me more about your...
Okay, in our manufacturing area, we put it together in such a way and with the goal of being as autonomous as we possibly could. We want to build as much of this as we can right here in Ridgecrest, and we do that. Right now, today, we're building these like crazy. And we have a clean room where we've got, you know, microscopes and a small soldering environment for fine-tuning things. In our main manufacturing area, we've got an assembly area where we literally put these things together. The system engineering aspect is the biggest part that we bring to the table. In addition, some of the major pieces of equipment that we have are a professional grade 3D printer. That's what allows us to print most of what you're looking at today. This gimbal, this battery storage container, all of those things were printed out of our 3D printer. We also have a CNC milling machine, which allows us to build other parts that can be curved. We also have a CNC router, and some of the plates that you can see inside this are G10 material that we build ourselves and design and cut out on our router. We also have a pick and place machine, which allows us to manufacture printed circuit boards for rapid prototyping.
I know part of the program with, you got in on the, what is it, the SB 333 waiver to do this, and part of that was that you do training.
So the way this works is that when we sell a Monarch unit, it comes with 3 days of training. Now, what you just mentioned, we've had a couple things happen that are really wonderful. First, the California State Park System has adopted the Monarch as one of the aircraft that they will use to survey in state parks. And we have a COA with them and 2 more in the system. We also just received, just last month, a 333 waiver from the FAA for doing precision agriculture work. And what that allows us to do with this is go out to farmers anywhere and provide that service to them of aerially mapping their property.
So as we sit here and speak today, I know Congress was hearing testimony on issues of these unmanned aerial space drones, but they were actually saying they are not unmanned, that there is a man there and operating. They, of course, were talking about different issues about people having the visibility of keeping the drone in their
Line of sight.
And so talk to us about some of these issues.
Okay. Well, first of all, part of what makes this area so fascinating is that what has happened is that over here you have hobbyists, and they have been doing drone things for 50 years. Over here on the exact opposite end of that spectrum, you have DoD, and they have been building drones for at least 50 years. What has happened is that technology has finally gotten us to a place just in the last couple of years where this middle space for consumers is now affordable. So applications like agriculture, solar panel inspections, wind turbine inspections, search and rescue, surveying, I could go on and on and on. It's kind of like a few years ago when everybody was excited about their iPhone and we all had 1 or 2 apps. Now we all have to delete them because we have so many we can't, get it figured out. That's what's happening here. This technology, pretty soon we won't be talking about the drone itself. We'll just be talking about the things that it does because they will help business. Mm-hmm. And that's what Congress is looking at right now. Mm-hmm. Congress has on the House side, I know they have an Unmanned Systems Committee that's been actively working to try to get these things in common use because they know that it helps business in so many ways. It can save money and it can save lives. Drones are perfect for doing anything that's dull, dirty, or dangerous. Those are the words they always use, and they're accurate. There's a lot to that. And Congress is working with the FAA to try to speed up this process so that we can kind of catch up with the rest of the world, because a lot of the rest of the world, Canada, for example, have rules in place already. So we want to get to that point.
So in terms of commercial use, people have a lot of concerns about privacy. Mm-hmm. But for the ag, for surveying and things of that nature, it's not an issue because you're going to be doing a specific site and within certain parameters. But I can't quite relate to people delivering my books or my pizza or my this or my that. I don't get that. How does that work?
So a couple comments there, and philosophically, if you look back in time, every time there is a new emergent technology that is disruptive, you're going to find goods and bads. Mm-hmm. And it's our challenge as a society to manage that. How you do that, I don't know. Right. That's not my thing. However, I will tell you that privacy is something that we all care very much about. Even though we are technologists and this is what we do, we care very much about privacy, and we hope that our legislators will continue to work, and they are, toward goals of having privacy laws in place that will allow technology to move forward and do the good things that it can do, while taking care of those people that are careless or reckless, because they're out there just like they are in any given area.
Right.
And so our job is to simply educate about the areas that we know. And you're right, if you're out in the middle of a field and you're with the farmer and it's his property, that's not really an issue.
There's no issue.
But other times it is, and we want to always be sensitive to that. For the most part, for most commercial applications, that won't be an issue because most of these are in remote areas. Now, you mentioned deliveries. I think Jeff Bezos did an amazing favor to this entire industry by going on 60 Minutes and saying, we're going to do deliveries. Well, my feeling is that we're not quite there yet. The technology is there. That's the easy part. We could do that tomorrow.
Right.
It's not a technology question. It's a question of how do we regulate that, and how do you do things that are beyond line of sight.
It's a very good closing thought, and I want to thank you so much for being my guest today on
Thank you
Ridgecrest
very much.
Talk.